Well, good evening, everyone. I hope you're doing well, and this is your Royal Daily News for June 29th, 2022. Recently, in Fredensborg, Her Royal Highness Crown Princess Mary of Denmark, as President of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, met with the Secretary General of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, Mr. Bo Øksnebjerg, in the wild garden outside her home of Chancellery House at Fredensborg Slot. In the interview, the Crown Princess spoke about biodiversity, the importance that her children respect and learn about nature, and much more. Here is an excerpt from the interview. Quote, "It is fantastic to give the needy Danish nature a helping hand and create a wild oasis right here where we live. After the garden has become wilder, I came out here even more. It is incredibly interesting to follow how the wildness unfolds, and I experience something almost new every day." End quote. If you're interested in reading Her Royal Highness Crown Princess Mary's entire interview, in the description box below, I will leave a direct link to my website where I translated it from Danish to English. In Copenhagen, His Royal Highness Crown Prince Frederik of Denmark attended the Tour de France team presentations ahead of the world-famous race. This morning, the future King of Denmark said, quote, "It was a great pleasure when I had the opportunity this morning to wish Michael Mørkøv, Michael Henri, and Kasper Askren good luck with the Tour de France. They are all three riders on Quick Step, which is the tour team where the most Danes have been selected. Later today, I am looking forward to watching this year's team presentation in Tivoli, where I will have the opportunity to wish the other Danes good luck. Signed, His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince." End quote. Last month, the two Tour de France commentators, Rolf Sørensen and Dennis Ritter, invited His Royal Highness Crown Prince Frederik of Denmark for a bike ride along the streets of Copenhagen to test out the first stage of the Tour de France. The single start, which is 13 kilometers, will lead the Tour de France riders through the Danish capital beginning on Friday, July 1st, 2022. The Crown Prince will hand over the yellow driver's jersey to the winner of the day's race. The second stage starts in Roskilde and ends in Nyborg, after a trip over the Storebæltsbroen, after which the third stage goes from Jehe to Sonderburg. The Crown Prince's cycling interview with Rolf and Ritter on tour will air this evening on TV2 at 20:50 p.m. Meanwhile, Their Majesties King Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima of the Netherlands continued their state visit to Austria. This morning, Their Majesties, accompanied by various Austrian government officials, arrived at Vienna's Hauptbahnhof to catch a train to beautiful Graz. During the train ride, discussions took place regarding sustainability and innovation. Whilst in Graz, they visited a family business. They also toured the Graz Rathaus, which is the town hall, where they signed the Golden Book, briefly visited the Alte Universiteit, took a leisurely stroll around the town center, and met with local government officials. In Brussels, His Majesty King Philippe of the Belgians received letters of credence from newly appointed ambassadors to Belgium, held at the Palais Royal. The newly appointed ambassadors include the ambassador from the Republic of Vanuatu, His Excellency Georges Singha Manuri, the ambassador from the Republic of Pakistan, His Excellency Asad Majid Khan, the ambassador from the Principality of Monaco, His Excellency Frédéric Labarrère, and the ambassador from the Republic of Nicaragua, Her Excellency Zoila Müller-Goff. In Madrid, Her Majesty Queen Letizia of Spain hosted a First Ladies and Companions meeting and outing for, the First Ladies and Companions of the participants in the 32nd NATO Summit held at the IFEMA Fairgrounds. The First Ladies and Gentlemen include the First Lady of the Republic of France, Her Excellency Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of the United States of America, Her Excellency Dr. Jill Biden, the First Lady of Norway, Her Excellency Ingrid Schillerund, and the husband of the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, His Excellency Gaëtan Destiné, to name a few. The day began with a visit to the Palazzo Real de la Granja de San Ildefonso, which is declared a historical monument. The palace is one of the best examples of monarchical splendor of the 18th century. Upon her arrival at the Palazzo, Her Majesty Queen Letizia was greeted by the President of the Board of Directors of the Natural Patrimony, Ms. Ana de la Cueva. Moments later, Her Majesty warmly welcomed the First Ladies and Gentlemen to the Palazzo. The tour of the Palazzo began in the gardens, where the ladies and gentlemen viewed the Fountain of the Eight Streets and the Baths of Diana, where they received an explanation about the fountain and the hydraulic system. The group also viewed the Fountain of the Frogs, viewing all of its 3 phases. After tour of the gardens, Her Majesty Queen Letizia and her new friends entered the palace, where they were given a tour of the tapestry rooms. In the afternoon, Her Majesty, the First Ladies and Gentlemen visited the Royal Glass Factory of La Granja. The day ended with a visit to the amazing Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofia. Upon their arrival, Her Majesty Queen Letizia, the First Ladies and Gentlemen were enthusiastically welcomed by the director of the museum, Mr. Manuel Borja Viel. After a group photograph in front of Pablo Picasso's Guernica, the director of the museum gave an explanation about the masterpiece to his distinguished guests. Meanwhile, His Majesty King Felipe VI of Spain held audiences at the Palacio de la Zarzuela. This morning, His Majesty met with the President of the Republic of South Korea, His Excellency Yoon Suk-yeol, the President of the European Commission, Her Excellency Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the Republic of Finland, His Excellency Sauli Väinämö. Yesterday afternoon, His Majesty King Felipe VI of Spain welcomed the President of the United States of America, His Excellency Joseph R. Biden, as he arrived at the Torrejon de Ardoz Air Base. Later in the afternoon, His Majesty and President Biden held a press conference at Palacio Real de Madrid. This morning in Edinburgh, His Royal Highness the Duke of Rothesay visited the Royal College of Surgeons. The Duke took over the patronage after the death of his father, the late His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. The Royal College of Surgeons is the oldest surgical college in the world and today has roughly 30,000 members in 100 countries. During today's visit, the Duke previewed a new sculpture by Mr. Kenny Hunter entitled Your Next Breath, which commemorates the NHS workers' contribution during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Duke also viewed a new portrait of his late father. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, Prince Charles, His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, is known as the Duke of Rothesay in Scotland, and Scotland only. So now you know. At the Palace of Holyrood House, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II held an audience for the First Minister of Scotland, Her Excellency Nicola Sturgeon. Upon meeting Her Majesty, the First Minister brought Her Majesty a bottle of whiskey. Well, that was thoughtful. Later in the afternoon, His Royal Highness the Duke of Rothesay, the Royal Highnesses the Earl and Countess of Forfar, Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal, and Vice Admiral Sir Timothy Lawrence attended a garden party at the Palace of Holyrood House. According to Buckingham Palace, over 1,000 guests attended today's garden party, which is a way the royal family says thank you to those for their hard work within their communities. And just on a side note, for those of you who do not know, the Royal Highnesses, the Earl and Countess of Wessex, are known as the Royal Highnesses, the Earl and Countess of Forfar, while they are in Scotland and Scotland only. So, yeah, I just thought you should know. On the late afternoon of Tuesday, June 28th, the Royal Highnesses Grand Duke Henri and Grand Duchess Maria Teresa of Luxembourg hosted a lovely garden party at Château de Berg in Colmer-Berg. Also in attendance were their Royal Highnesses Hereditary Grand Duke Guillaume and Hereditary Grand Duchess Stephanie of Luxembourg and His Royal Highness Prince Felix of Luxembourg. The garden party was held on the occasion of Fête Nationale, which was actually last Thursday, June 23rd, for over 300 representatives from political, diplomatic, administrative, economic, and civil society of Luxembourg. In Troisvierges, His Royal Highness Grand Duke Henri of Luxembourg, accompanied by the Minister for the Environment, Climate, and Sustainable Development, Mrs. Joëlle Welfring, visited the Cornelys Millen Nature Reserve and Trail. The Cornelys Millen Nature Trail is an 8.5-kilometer trail that takes the hiker through numerous ponds and wetlands. The nature reserve is one of the last areas of refuge for many threatened animals such as the black stork and plant species in Luxembourg. And finally, on Tuesday, June 28th, His Serene Highness Prince Albert II of Monaco attended the Second United Nations Ocean Conference in Lisbon, Portugal. Late yesterday afternoon, the Sovereign Prince hosted a side event entitled Polar Oceans, Engine to the Global Ocean, Messages and Messengers, held at the Mar de Pala Auditorium. And there you have it. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow on Thursday, June 30th with all the latest royal news. Until then, you can visit me at my website, royalcorrespondent.com, or on Twitter. With that being said, have a wonderful evening, everyone. It's been a long day for me, so I'm going to relax. Anyways, I hope you all will join me tomorrow. And again, thanks for watching. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.